Hello and welcome to Game Chat with Bwana, episode 144. I'm your host, Bwana. Today we're going to be talking about the week's gaming news. We're a day late today. I did a weekend excursion on my live stream over on twitch.tv/Bwana. We had what we call a goal-a-thon, and we streamed throughout the entire weekend, starting from Thursday and ending till Monday. Me and my wife over on her channel, Pink Sophia, twitch.tv/Pink Sophia, we did a tag team thing where when I went to take a nap and went to go to sleep, she streamed and vice versa. It was very fun, very fun. Probably going to do another one. I don't know when, but it's going to be soon. We're going to be doing another one. So that's why this episode is a little bit late. Hopefully you guys will enjoy the show. We got only about 4 stories to talk about today, mostly to do with Microsoft. A little bit about some other stuff, but you know, Microsoft is big in the news this week, so we're going to be talking about that. Should be relatively short episode, so I hope you all enjoy the show. And for our first story, we're going to be talking about Team Fortress 2. The highly anticipated summer 2023 update has arrived. And with that, with some record numbers over there on the Team Fortress 2. This story comes by way of Rock, Paper, Shotgun. It's 2023, and Team Fortress 2 just set a new all-time player record. If you haven't heard of TF2, I don't know what rock you've been living under, but TF2 is a very popular shooter. Very, very dated. I mean, according to the articles, 16 years old. I think some of you, no, I don't think anybody's watching this is 16, but there's a lot of 16-year-olds who's like, Team what? What do you mean? Is it Roblox? You know, they don't know what it is. But the article says the release of Team Fortress 2's much anticipated summer update this week has boosted the nearly 16-year-old multiplayer game to new all-time records, a new all-time record for concurrent players. Over 250,000 people were playing Team Fortress 2 at the same time, almost doubling its previous record, which was only set last year, signaling that there's plenty of life left in this enormously popular shooter yet. This is one of the first games I've ever live streamed. I think going way, way, way back. First game I live streamed was like Call of Duty 4, and then shortly after that, I was doing a lot of Team Fortress 2 streaming, and it was like a staple of my community. And a lot of people found me in this community via Team Fortress 2 on my live streams over on Justin.tv, and I think even on Ustream.tv when I streamed over there. So I have a long record with this game, long record and long history. And it's really, really interesting to see that it's making a resurgence like this, because when you talk about TF2, I know a lot of us, including myself, when you think about TF2, it's like you think the game is like, okay, it's got a niche audience, maybe people just selling hats and all that kind of good stuff. But the thing that surprised me about this article was not necessarily that it hit 250,000 for this update, but that it set a previous record last December. I think that totally that went under my radar. That slipped my mind. I didn't know that happened. So it's kind of crazy that this 16-year-old game is still breaking concurrency records, even to this day. And when you think about it, there hasn't been that much of a change to it. I think this summer 2023 update is probably one of the biggest changes it's had. According to the article, they said that it's going to have, here it is. Much of Team Fortress 2's current resurgence is down to the enormous summer update released on July 12th. And I think I reported on this in one of my videos previously, that this was going to be a big update coming this summer, the first time in a very long time. It adds over a dozen new community maps, loads of cosmetics, including items, taunts, effects, and war paints, plus some more generic fixes and improvements. And I didn't even know about this one. They added a seal that you can feed fish, and the first team to feed the seal 100 fish wins something. I don't know. But apparently the seal's name is Sylvia? Yeah, Sylvia. And it's on one of the maps called Selbian, a Scandinavian-inspired fishing village, which I have yet to play this. So I'm going to be looking for the seal and feed the fish. Check the story out. Over on Rock, Paper, Shotgun, they got the details. Team Fortress 2 is not dead. Matter of fact, it's setting records. And for our next story, we're going to be talking about Microsoft. This comes off the heels of the article and the stories that Microsoft has won their case against the FTC to go forward with the Blizzard Activision acquisition. That's pretty much a done deal. I think there was some last minute stuff that they had to do. I didn't see anything in the news today about it actually being finalized, but Activision Blizzard was removed from the NASDAQ in anticipation of this deal, I think on Friday. And there were some things that had to go on over the weekend, but I don't think anything happened today. I have to check the news feeds. But anyway, I said all that to say this. We're going to be talking about this story about Microsoft and Sony, that they have agreed to keep Call of Duty on the PlayStation. This article comes by way of Engadget.com. Phil Spencer announced the deal on Sunday morning. He says, "We are pleased to announce that Microsoft and PlayStation have signed a binding agreement to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation following the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. We look forward to a future where players globally have more choice to play their favorite games." And this is kind of crazy because they've been going back and forth. There's been a bitter feud between Microsoft and the FTC by way of Sony, I guess by proxy, because Sony was a big opponent to this whole acquisition. They did not want it to go through. As a matter of fact, Jim Ryan was quoted as saying, "I don't want a new Call of Duty deal. I just want to block your merger." So he was very clear from Sony's perspective that they did not want this merger to go through. But it is going through, and now they're signing a 10-year deal, according to his article. I think Phil Spencer didn't disclose the terms and the length of it, but Stephen Totilo of Axios later confirmed that it is 10 years in duration that Microsoft and Activision Blizzard will be keeping Call of Duty on the PlayStation for at least 10 more years. After that, we don't know what's going to happen. I imagine it's going to get extended beyond that as well. But there's been a lot going on with this whole thing. A lot of bad dirt emails, internal memos, and just a lot of it was a really ugly case from a gamer's perspective. I think one of the terms I described it to my community is that it was a total clown show. Everybody was showing their rear end, and it was not pretty. But yeah, the acquisition is done. Call of Duty's on PlayStation now. Maybe things can get back to semi-normal. My opinion on the whole thing is I think Microsoft is taking a stance that they are the true heroes of gaming, and Sony is the enemy, trying to prevent that. But I'll say this. I don't think this acquisition was a really good idea. I think it's not going to help gamers in the end, like Microsoft says it is. Even though they approve, or they're really promoting the idea of Game Pass and Game Pass, renting games, and I've been a big opponent of that. I don't like renting games. I don't like games as a service. I don't like renting games. I don't like the ideas and the concepts behind them, because when you think about it, older games are just a dying breed. I think somebody said that games that, of like. It was like games that were released before 2010, over 90% of them are not accessible anymore. And it's like, man, if it weren't for modders, I think I've said this here before, if it weren't for modders, a lot of these games wouldn't even be around today. We wouldn't even be seeing them, because the big reason why these companies like Sony, PlayStation, and Microsoft, and even Nintendo, why they offer older games on their digital shops is because the modders were making them popular, and these companies were seeing them as a lost revenue opportunity. They're like, we could be making money off of that. We could be reselling The Legend of Zelda 1 and 2 for $15 instead of them playing it for free. And thankfully, Nintendo's kind of coming around, because they're allowing us to reuse our Switch IDs on the next consoles instead of having to create a new ID and to rebuy everything again on a new console. I can't tell you how many times I've bought Super Mario Brothers. Probably like 6 or 7 times. And it just makes you want to get into modding. It's just like, hey, I bought the game 6 times. I'm just going to mod it. I'm not going to even worry about using your digital shops or anything like that. And to me, it's like the rules behind modding and emulation. I keep saying modding, but the rules behind emulation are that if you do own the game, you technically have rights to create the ROM from the game you bought. I think that's the letter of the law right there. Something similar to that. But the way I see it is that if I bought it, I can use the ROM. That's Bwana's sense in layman's terms. If I bought the game, if I got a copy of it, I can use the ROM. But man, it's just, I don't think Game Pass has a good future for games. It's you're paying to get access and demo a lot of games, but the likelihood that you keep playing these games and that you get value out of them is very low, thereby really minimizing the value, the perceived value of Game Pass. Like, oh, I got access to all these games and I only have to pay $10 a month. That's $120 a year that I'm paying for all these games. And it's like, it's a perceived value that really isn't there for most people, because if you get value out of 2 or 3 games for a certain amount of time, you're really probably only going to spend so much amount of time playing them. This is the way I see it. And when you buy a game, most people, when you buy a game, you're committed to playing that game to try to get value out of the game. when you're on Game Pass, the game's always going to be there. So it's just like, oh, I'll try it. Oh, maybe I'll finish it later. So you're not really motivated to even put time into the game. So you're like, okay, I have access to it. That's cool. I'm getting good value, but you never play it. Not only do we lose the game's history, not only do we lose access to the games if Game Pass were to go away, or if Microsoft just up and decided to remove the game from the library, because they do that. Not only do you lose that, but it's like the perceived value gives us a false sense of security that we're actually getting value of these games that we're not even playing. Now, I know you can counter that with like, hey, Bwana, let's look at your Steam library. Yeah, your Steam library is like full of all these games that you haven't played. That's true. That's true. But I can play them, pending that they're not some stupid live service game. I can play them. Pending that Steam doesn't shut down one day, I can play them. That the DRM does something stupid, that's another thing, another problem that the DRM is. But I can play them whenever I want. I don't have to worry about paying a fee. That's the way I see it. I don't like Game Pass as a concept. I think it's a good value for gamers. Excuse me. It's a good perceived value from gamers from a certain perspective. You're seemingly getting access to all these games, but you're not going to have time to play them all. You're not going to play them all. And when you do play them, you're probably not going to finish them. And they're going to probably go away one day, which is really bad. Microsoft is counting on you to just keep feeding their yearly revenue with your $10 a month. And they don't care if they come in last place. They don't care if they're the last place console, because as long as you're paying them $10 a month, probably not even playing any games, they're gonna stay afloat. Yeah, it's a good business model, especially if they don't have to deliver that much. They just put the games out there, and you might play them, you might not. Check it out. Engadget has the details over here about Microsoft and Sony agree to keep Call of Duty on the PlayStation. Let's see how it goes. We're going to see how this plays out, though I'm not very optimistic about the future. And for our next story, we're going to be talking about a great member of the podcasting community, Larry Hryb, a.k.a. Major Nelson. He announced that he is going to be leaving Microsoft. 22 years at the company. The guy was pretty much the face of Xbox. And I remember, even in my early podcasting days, how much this guy was an inspiration in terms of like what he did, how he did the shows, how consistent he was, and his viewpoints, and how balanced his mindset was. He was a bright star in the Xbox community. It says, after 20 incredible years, I have decided to take a step back and work on the next chapter of my career. As I take a moment to think about all we have done together, I want to thank the millions of gamers around the world who have included me as part of their lives. And this goes on to say some other stuff. But he was a very approachable personality. It seems like he was a gamer, and he understood gaming philosophies and stuff. And people who had gripes about the whole idea behind Xbox and all the problems that Microsoft had with Xbox over the years, the Red Ring of Death fiasco, and Major Nelson was a very, very good marketing PR face that represented Xbox. He did a good job. Even if you hated Xbox, it was hard to not like Larry Hryb, aka Major Nelson. He hasn't yet detailed what his next career chapter is. However, he did note on the official Xbox podcast, which he hosted, that he will take a hiatus this summer and return later in a new format. So we're going to be looking forward to whatever else Major Nelson is going to be doing. I'll be honest with you. I haven't seen or listened to his podcast in many, many years. I just assumed he was still doing it. And it makes me want to go back and listen to some of his later episodes to see if I can get some hints as to why or what he's going to be doing next. But again, Larry Hryb, man. Larry Hryb. Hryb? I always called him Major Nelson. So when he said his real name, it's just like, I don't know, Larry Hryb. Major Nelson is leaving Microsoft. And you know what's weird? You know what's funny? You know what's weird and funny? Is that Xbox Live Gold is going away too. It's being replaced by some sort of a Game Pass tier. So Larry Hryb, Major Nelson is leaving, and so is Xbox Live Gold at the same time. Have you ever seen two in the same place at the same time? Is Larry Hryb actually Xbox Live Gold with glasses on? Is it a secret? I don't know if they're one and the same, but I just thought it was a coincidence that they were both, like, he's like, Xbox Live is gone and so am I. That makes no sense at all. There's no logical reason to even do that. I just noticed the coincidence, and I was trying to figure out why it wasn't a coincidence, because I don't believe in coincidences. Check it out, guys. Over on thegadget.com, they got the details. Xbox's Major Nelson is leaving. Sad to see him go. He was a good force behind Xbox. And we'll be looking forward to see what he does next. And for our final story, we're going to be talking about Exoprimal. Exoprimal is a new dino shooter game from Capcom. And I had the pleasure of playing this game for about 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours. And I couldn't stop. It was really actually more fun than I anticipated. Having playing in I played in some of the previous betas, that it was really, really fun, like super duper fun. And I didn't want to stop. So this article comes by way of VG247. It says Exoprimal's dino shooter feels at home on Xbox Game Pass, but doesn't have staying power. And it is on Game Pass. So those of you who do have Game Pass, you can go try it out. You can take a look at it, see what it's about. And those of you who don't have Game Pass, the game is $60 on Steam at the moment. So while I'm not going to focus too much on the article, I'm just going to talk about more of my thoughts on Exoprimal. You guys can go check out this article if you wish. Exoprimal is a good game, and I made it look really fun on my stream because it was. Many people were considering buying the game and looking into it and trying to get into it and stuff and asking me a lot of questions, which was really fun to do. But the only problem I have with it, because I think the gameplay loop is great. I think it's fun. I think the mixture of PvE, VP is interesting and engaging. I think that it's enough to keep you playing for a bit. But I don't know if it's worth $60. That's the only thing I'm like, this feels like a $29.99 to $39.99 title at the most, because it feels sort of free to play-ish from the standpoint of it having a battle pass and it having progression and cosmetics that are locked behind some paid options, and that doesn't really have a solid campaign, if you will. The campaign is like this. This is how the campaign works. You play through several multiplayer game modes, which are PvE or PvEVP, in a sense. They're all kind of PvP, but some of the PvEVP modes, you engage the other players directly, and some you don't. It's more of a race to finish the objectives first. That's kind of the whole spiel. Whoever finished the objective first wins, the team that does. And it really feels like the campaign is just cutscenes that are inserted into your progression. So you reach a certain level, they give you a new cutscene. You get to a new level, they give you a new cutscenes. And then there's clues that you can find throughout the maps and through the progression that you can unlock more lore and more cutscenes and stuff like that. It doesn't really feel like more of a campaign to more of like a glorified codex, if you will. That's the way I look at it. It's like, those games where they have the codex and you can read about what happened and why this happened and stuff. They just really put some high level cutscenes behind that codex, because it's not really like I said, it's not really a traditional go to point A, go to point B, get a cutscene type of a game. And it feels very multiplayer or PvE only, almost like a Warframe meets, I can't even think of another game. It's got that Warframe-like loop to me. It feels like a Warframe grind because you're going to be repeating the same type of missions quite often. Now, granted, I haven't played for more than 10 hours, and there's new game modes and new types of contests that are being unlocked as I play, and I imagine there's going to be more. So I think that Exoprimal probably has more than what I think it does at the moment, and that's probably true. The fun factor's there. The gameplay loop is fun. And the question that VG247 is asking is very valid. Does it have staying power, especially at that price point? You're paying $60 for this. So it's going to have the issue of having fresh players come in if it has that pay to enter type of thing. Now, I know Game Pass will alleviate some of that, but from what I recall, I think some of the crossplay is not truly crossplay. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I don't think Game Pass players can play with Steam players. I know when I was playing, I saw two icons. I saw a Steam icon and I saw a Capcom ID icon on players' names. I didn't see an Xbox or anything like that icon over people's heads. So if your crossplay is limited, and you have this $60 hurdle to get over on a game that seems like it should be at least like at the most $30, $40, but it seems like it could be a free to play game. It's a high quality game, don't get me wrong. Staying power is going to depend on the player base and the health of new players to inject new life into the game, so that when people do get burned out, there'll be somebody to replace them. Like, got to have a new wave of veterans every now and then to keep a game like this going. And if you don't have that, if you don't have, new players coming in every now and then, once your veterans get burned out, the game population drops dramatically. So while I like Exoprimal a lot, I think it's worth playing. I think it's really fun. I'm telling you, man, it's got the loop. It's got the fun down. They nailed that. That is really good. I fear that the price and the lack of true crossplay is going to limit its future. However long it lasts is going to depend on what they do with the onboarding of new players. If they drop the price, if they eventually go free to play, I have a feeling they're going to go free to play. This seems like a game that I don't think it could justify staying at $60. It's got to have a big price drop, or it's got to go free to play. It's got the bones to already be free to play because it has a battle pass, but that initial $60 just ain't it. It just doesn't seem like it's worth it. While the game is really fun and great, and if you like dinosaurs, you're gonna like this, that's for sure. Having it at $60 just seems like a mistake. So does it have staying power? I don't know. I hope it does stay around, but if they keep things the same, it's not going to. I really think the player population is going to die down very fast, and I think they're going to have to make some quick adjustments to keep themselves afloat. While I do really like the game, though, I do like the game. So maybe Game Pass can keep it alive. We'll see. We'll see if Game Pass can keep it alive. I don't know if it can. But being on Steam, that doesn't affect me at all. If Game Pass can keep it alive, I'm not going to have anybody to play with because I can't play with Game Pass viewers, apparently. Again, if you Game Pass players, apparently, if you guys think I'm wrong on that, or if you want to correct me, let me know in the comments. But the crossplay isn't truly crossplay. So if Game Pass does keep it alive, then the Steam population will be dead. Check it out over on VG247. They got the details. Exoprimal's out. You guys can check it out if you have Game Pass, but if you don't, you got to fork over $60, and currently, I don't think it's worth that amount. And that concludes episode 144. I really hope I'm getting that right. I just guess it's at episode numbers sometimes. If it's 145, I'm sorry. Episode 144, Game Chat with Bwana. Thank you so much for listening. Today was a good episode. I hope you enjoyed the show. I want to thank my patrons at patreon.com/Bwana. Thank you so much to these individuals for making this happen. Thank you for supporting my my endeavors here at Casa de Bwana, whether it be live streaming, whether it be podcasting, whether it be 3D printing, whether it be just whatever, creating crazy YouTube shorts and TikToks and all that stuff, all the content creation that we do. Patreon.com/Bwana. These guys support me. You can too. Head over there, see what the perks are, see if they can fit your needs. And I thank you for your support. Any way you support me is appreciated. Also, I want to thank you for watching this video. Make sure you leave a subscribe and a like if you do. If you're watching me or listening to me on Spotify, make sure you subscribe to the podcast there. I appreciate the listen as well. I do have another podcast called Print All the Things where I talk about 3D printing. So if you're interested in any of those things, check out Print All the Things. It's on my Bwana Labs YouTube. You'll find the links to that below as well. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next episode. I apologize for being late this week again. Like I said, we had a good time with a Goal-a-thon this weekend, and I look forward to it. So you guys have a good day. I can't think of anything else to say that rhymes. Bye.